Hello.
Hey, Joe.
Yeah.
How's it going?
Oh, hey. Let's go, God. How you doing, man?
Not bad.
Cool. I'm going to Slack out a poll. Boink. Just curious if anyone's worked with Firebase in the past or not. Firebase offers a lot of services in and of itself. We're going to be doing the database service, but they have authentication, hosting your web application. There's quite a few other things that they do. All right. So we got 3 no's. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 people out there and only 3 responses. Anybody else going to respond? There we go. I know there's people out there. Okay, there we go. All right. So it looks like the majority have not worked with it. It's going to be a pretty cool alternative to pulling in data via Google Sheets as JSON, which is really easy and allows you to just open up a Google Sheet and add things and delete them and edit things at will. So depending on your needs, that could be a useful solution, or if you need something a bit more robust, Firebase is definitely a cool tool to have. So what we're going to be doing is, I'm going to do this. I'm going to split my screen. And this one over here. All right. Is this the first one? Cool. So for our demo, we're going to be building just a really basic notes app. It's a to-do list again. What I wanted you to see is this. This is the database. This is the online Firebase database. And as I add things, I don't know, what's this one? Is this empty? It's just empty. So I'm going to delete that. Bloop, bloop. Now, as I add things, learn about Firebase. Okay, create note. Boom. Do you see how it automatically created it here in their real-time database? I can take a look at it. It'll say learn about Firebase. I did have another body field. I just commented it out so we don't have to add it. And then if I delete it here, it gets deleted there. See, it's turning red, and then it disappears. So it's this real-time database. Once again, I could test again, test. I was doing lots of tests today. And boom. So you can also add a node if you want to as well. Another node here, maybe test 2. I'm not really good with, no, didn't add it. I usually don't add it this way anyway. I might go in here and edit it. That's test. I might go in here and edit this thing. Let me see. Can I edit it? Test again. And look, and it updated. So it's live. Wherever it gets updated, either in your React app or within the online database, you would see it live. So this is a really good option if you're doing something like, if I'm doing a note app for me, and I'm the only one that accesses the Node app, I don't know having real-time databases because I'm the only one interfacing with it, right? I'm never going to go into Firebase and be like, oh, let me update that thing. That's just not a practical approach. But another approach to using this type of database system is as a messaging app. So let's just say I have here a few messages, no messages, embeds, and you can see here, bets and no messages. So I can delete this message and it should go, right? Disappear. And hello there, everyone. post it to the board, and we'll see it. Now, I'm going to Slack. Let me change this view here. I'm going to Slack this out to you, and I want you to just open it up and add a message. So just open up, add a message, and see? We should all be seeing that data live. Okay, it's pretty cool, right? So I can delete testing. If I delete testing, it gets deleted here, it gets deleted on your side. Because there is an event listener listening for these changes as well. So any changes that happen, either here or here, once again, I don't know, why do you hate GIFs, Joe? I don't hate them. Actually, I do. I really don't like GIFs. They're just annoying. They're the same pattern over and over and again. And it's like, especially when people put them in presentations and you're looking at the person talk while this GIF in the background is going for the 5 minutes. It's really just distracting. That's why. So this is pretty cool, right? I mean, this particular configuration that we're going to be setting up is one configuration. Like, if you don't need to pull the messages because every time we edit, someone adds and activates this thing and says, hey, this database has been updated, that causes a call to pull all of the messages, which really isn't the most efficient, right? Having to put every message and re-render every message isn't always the best option. I don't think it's ever the best option, to be honest. So, but it's the simplest way for us to implement it, okay? And that's kind of where we're going to be going. That's our goal. So I'm going to need everyone, because in order to do this, we're going to have to set up Firebase. So go to Firebase. And when you're on Firebase, I'm just going to move these up here. Log in. You have to log in with a Gmail account. And everyone on this planet at this point in time has a, remember when, I don't even know if everyone remembers this. How many of you had an AOL account? All right, handful. I had an AOL account, yeah. It was like the first, boop, boop, bzz, bzz, putting your CD in and dialing up to the internet. That was crazy cool. It's a whole other world now. So let me just put here, click. You do not miss the dial-up sound, Connor. You don't miss it. Trust me. If it came back and you had to do it. I think I saw a show the other day where this young kid is trapped in some basement and he picks up the phone, and it's an old phone, and he's got to turn the dial around, and he picks it up and he doesn't know what to do. So he's like hitting the numbers and he doesn't know what to do until he does it. My son said, oh, that'd be cool to have one of those. And I'm like, you know what? It's cool for a minute. And then you realize pressing your phone and being like, boop, call, so much better. It's nostalgia. Maybe record albums are cool, but not that. Click here.
People have zeros in their numbers, so you have to go all the way.
Oh, yeah. Forget about calling international, right? Click here when you have an account set up. Okay, just putting the thumbs up there. Just click on the thumbs up. I want to make sure. I almost thought, Megan, you put a Giphy, and I was going to go crazy. But you did. I'll take a look at that later. For anyone running late, please sign up for, I know there's a few people running late, for a Firebase account. All right. Spy 2 and 2. It's a short responsibility. Look at that. Fun fact. Must feel like it's a Jeopardy question or something. All right. So what do we got? 7. Looks good. Awesome. So having Firebase means we have to set up our application. So I'm going to go to the console over here. See on the right-hand side, you should all see your profile picture, and then go to the console. I'm going to go to the console. Now I have a bunch of projects. So I have all of these projects that I've pushed up to Firebase. I think there is a limit on how many you can have, maybe 10 before you have to start paying for it. And so you can see here, this is the Notes app, and this was the actual, the other app, the Task app. Plus I have a bunch of color switchers because you know I love color switchers. So I'm going to click on Add a Project. Add a project. And so what's the name of your project? What is it going to be called? I'm going to say Notes app. That's what I'm going to call it. I don't think I have one for Notes app. So I'll call it Notes app. You can see here where it pins some unique information so that the application is unique within Firebase environment. I'm going to continue. I've really had this conflict where it says, okay, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to turn off Google Analytics only because then it's going to ask me to log in with some sort of Google Analytics account. I'm not going to do that. And I'm just going to create the project. You give it a minute, we get a project. All right. So my project is created. Okay. Your project. All right. Is everyone good? Create your project. Sweet. I'm going to click continue. And now we're on our Firebase application. So the first thing that we want to do is to create a database. Now I did mention that there's authentication. You can use it for storage, hosting. I use it sometimes for, you can push up a basic HTML, CSS configuration up there to host it. Really easy to do. Functions, I've seen some demos on it, not really familiar with what that does, and I don't know what the ML kit is. But we're just going to use it for the database. So I'm going to click on the database. Okay, so they do offer a few options for the database. They offer this new cloud store, which we're not going to be using. And then this real-time database. So we're going to set up our real-time database. So I'm going to go ahead, create the database. Now, when you create it, you have rules to be like, hey, no one should be able to read or write from this database, right? Maybe there should be some authentication before you can. We aren't going to be that stern with ours. We're just going to say in test mode. In test mode allows us to read and write willy-nilly, and then we can enable it. And so, you know, if you really wanted to implement authentication, you could implement auth on the the client side also, and tell it if it's been authenticated, then it can add. If it hasn't been authenticated, it won't have access to it. So we get this, your security rules are defined as public. Anyone can steal, modify, or delete your data in your database. Yeah, I know that. And I'm just going to dismiss that message. I'm not really concerned about that right now. I'm not going to configure this. But keep that in mind, right? You're going to build your app, and you don't want people to just do whatever they want in the database. Okay, so there's nothing in here. When before, like if I just go back to this other one, you hear there was a Notes app, there was a Notes kind of subfolder, I suppose, and then this entry in here with this long GUID, and then some data, right? Same thing with this one. Right? The name, some sort of top-level folder structure there, and then something, okay? So what this is our top level. We're going to have to add something, but we're not going to add it here. We're going to allow the application within React to create that, okay? Once again, I could go here and say something, hey, like notes. I could do this, but that's not what I want to do, okay? So I'm going to delete that. I don't want to add anything here manually. I'm going to let React and the Firebase on the React side do it for us. Okay, so we have our database set up. Now, we're going to need to use this database, and so there's configuration information on this database that we're going to need to use at some point in time, right? How is it going to know to connect to this particular database under, my account or my access key? So in order to set this up so that we can interface with it, I'm going to go up to Project Overview. I'm just going to click on Project Overview. Is that it? All right. Refreshes, and I'm kind of back to that page that allowed me to add the database. Here, I'm going to click on this web component here. So you can add Firebase to your app. If it was an iOS app, you could add it. If it's an Android app, you could add it. We're going to add it to the web. And Firebase is a pretty good tool for people that are, building out iOS and Android apps, right? Because you don't want to install a database locally. You just want the thing to be pushed up, and then anyone can interface with it. So I'm going to click on the web. All right. Now it's like, hey, what's the name? We have to register a name for this particular app. I think we call it Notes App before. I think if I do this, I think this should work. I don't think this is going to be a problem. So let me see. I'm going to call it Notes App. That's what I believed we called it before, right? Just going to say, register the app. It's going to take us to another page or show us some information. And this is the information that we are going to need, okay? They kind of give you like script tags and things like, hey, they almost assume you're writing your application in HTML. And if you were, you would just copy all of this and dump it into the head of your HTML file, and then you'd be ready to rock and roll. We're not going to be doing that, right? Everything we're going to be doing is React. But hold on to that. Leave that page open because we're going to come back to this after we set up our app. Okay? So let me slack out our starter code. Okay, so this is our starter code. We'll open that up, fork it. Hey, Yoon, I know you just jumped on. Go to Firebase. I put a link here and just log on for an account.
Got it.
Okay. There's a few other things we need to do, but.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay, but for now, just open this up. Let me zoom in a little bit. Here we go. Okay, so I have the app. I'm going to go to the app. We see here there's quite a bit of the app in place already. I try to set it up so that we could just kind of jump in and do the thing. All right. So in order for us to start using Firebase, we have to import that configuration info. And I've created this Firebase JS file right here. Okay, so we have app, we have forum, and then I have Firebase. And so we need to import the Firebase configuration info, okay? So I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to take everything from the var all the way to Firebase initialize app, okay? I don't need the additional comment above it. I don't need the script tags. We don't need that. That'll break our app. Just going to copy that. I'm going to go here, and it says here to paste the Firebase config provided, you create it with Firebase. So I'm going to do that. Bloop. Okay. Now we also need to import Firebase library. Now I've already done that for us. See here, here's Firebase. Firebase is installed. We have React, React DOM, scripts. We're also using semantic UI for this. It's just a front-end framework. But if I deleted this Firebase library and I wanted to add it again, and I go to add dependencies, I could just type Firebase, right? And then I'm going to get the first one. But there's quite a few, right? There's Firebase database, utils, logger. I'm just going to choose the first one. You already have it. I think if you have it, it doesn't show it to you again, right? Let me see. If I did Firebase, is it going to show it to me again? Yeah, it does show it to you. All right. We only want it one time. Okay. So now that we have our config, I'm going to import. I'm importing the Firebase library right here. Import Firebase from Firebase. Okay. We import Firebase. We have the Firebase configs. We then initialize the Firebase application. Okay. We give it, so it has a method, initialize app, and we give it the configs from here. And these are our configs for our application. Okay. It's got the database URL that it's going to use to connect to the database, send and receive data. Now, what I noticed earlier when I was working on Code Sandbox versus like a CodePen or even like local React files is it kept erroring out on me saying something like Firebase was already initialized. So this is what I'm going to show you. Then we can go back. Create a variable. I'm going to do this first. Let data, because I want you to see the error. Let database equal to Firebase dot database. Okay. So initializing the app spins it up, and then initializing the database. So now we have a handle on the database. Okay. And then I'm going to export 1P default database. Okay, I'm going to export it. Easy enough, right? That was pretty easy. So this is what we should have. This is my configs. Okay, just like my configs were, that's exactly kind of what yours should look like right now. We're not going to get any error messages yet. Like if I refresh this, I don't think we're going to get any error messages as of right now. Nope. And that's because we're not importing the file. Like, so the file isn't really being used yet either. Okay. So in order for us to use this information, we don't want to just use it here. We want to store the information here so we can clean up our app. We could have put this all in the app, but we don't want to do that. And then there's just a lot of extra code. So I'm going to go to the application. And here, import. I'm going to import. I'm going to call it database from Firebase. Okay. Looks good. Maybe we don't, but we're not going to get those errors. Drove me crazy. All right, maybe we won't. I'm really surprised we're not getting them. But if we do get an error about Firebase app already being initialized, it's because some sort of global thing happening here where this is already initialized, and every time we restart, it tries to kind of reinitialize it again, but it's not doing that now. Drove me crazy earlier today. All right. Yeah.
Is it Firebase app name default already exists?
I think so. Is that the error you're getting?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what we're going to do, if that's the error, I'm just surprised mine isn't giving the error. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go back here, and in Firebase, what I'm going to do is wrap around this. Now watch, I'm going to paste it and I'll slack it out. What I'm saying here now is if not Firebase app.length, right? If there's nothing, if there's a Firebase app that has no length, then create this. If it does, don't do anything. Okay, so let me slack that out. Anyone else get that error? No? Okay. Yeah, it was driving me crazy because
I got it. Yeah.
You got it? Okay. I was getting it all morning when I was configuring this stuff. I never had seen that before. I worked with Firebase and code pens and local machines. Never had that error. So it was kind of puzzling. Like I didn't really know what was happening. Obviously, I Googled it and I found the solution, right? So kind of seeing the error kind of led me to the fact that I think it's initializing it. And so my first approach was, where else is it? Is it trying to double initialize it? Where is it? And I try to rule those things out. Nothing worked. So I figured it had to be something in the global scope where this thing is being initialized. And every time it refreshes, it says it's already there and you can't recreate it. That's really the error. But I'm just going to make sure I'm going to refresh mine. I want to make sure nothing happens. Everything is good. Boom. Everything is good. Sweet. I'm going to go to the app. All right. So now this is where we start to configure the application to use Firebase and to start pulling some things down. Now that we have Firebase, right, and we have this create node, we could easily push something to Firebase now. We really wouldn't see it on our side because we're not pulling anything in Firebase, right? Just quickly go over the configurations for this particular app. We have just, an input, which is a form, which is this form right here. There is looping construct here to render to the screen anything that's in the notes variable in state, and it just creates this container. Once again, don't get caught up in this. This is just because I'm using semantic UI. This is another instructor's material. I just took it, had semantic UI, figured I'd go with it. So they're just importing container and header. It's like React Strap, Bootstrap, or Materialize, or any one of those, okay? And we're importing form as well. I have notes here. I'm using some basic form of use state, notes and set notes. And so I'm pulling notes, looping through, and then I'm creating this thing. For each one of those, I'm giving the title and the body, which I'm not really going to be using the body, and then a handle delete, right? Once it's created, we need to delete it, and I'm targeting the key of the element. Now, we're going to be targeting the key of the element because that's what this represents here. This is the key, and if we want to delete it on Firebase, the best way to target something very specifically is using a key. If I just loop over and say delete things that have test again, where there may be 2 or 3 things that have test again, and all of them would get deleted. Okay, so a key, very unique, that's the only thing. Okay. So let's add something here. Let me see, I'm just trying to say, do we want to do the handle submit? Yeah, let's do this. Let's work with handle submit before we live pull the data, because I want you to just see that it's there. Like, we'll see that it's on the database, and then we can add the event listener that listens for any changes in the database. So I have a handle submit right here, right? If I do this, I should just get form submitted, right? I'm just going to make sure that I get that console log. I'm getting all these like little warning messages. What's this? Fill a resource server, fill a response. I don't know where that's coming from. I'm going to get rid of these. Refresh my page. I just want to make sure these errors aren't persistent. Are they related here? Index. Not really sure. We're going to get rid of that. All right. So if I create a note, warning, React version, not. Okay, that's just ESLint. All right. So it doesn't look like the submit is working, right? If it was working, we would have at least seen something here, right? Form handle submit. So let me just take a quick look and see. I have a handle submit that's calling the handle submit, right? And that's passing down the form. If I go down a form, I see form here has a handle submit. It's got a prevent default, so we don't refresh. It is props.handle submit, inputs, and then set input title. Okay, that's our submit. Okay, and we have here input, right? So props handle, pass it back up. I'm just curious why it's not. Event defaults and a massive event listener. That just doesn't seem right. But you know what? The form isn't working either. Let me just take a look here. Can't type in the form. If I can't type in the form, it's note.title. We have state here. Something else. Is anyone else having the same issue? Can anyone else type? You can't type in, right? This is a form. The fact that it's not allowing me to type in is a little odd. Yours is working, Megan?
Try reloading, maybe.
What's that?
Try reloading. Maybe it's been bugging me a lot about update for Code Sandbox all day.
Okay. That's weird. Oh, because like I see it. Here's the Notes app, and then all of a sudden, it's just really, really slow. Like, yeah, I feel like something was weird, and still nothing. Same here. Mine is working. Meg is working. Who else is it working for? Joey's working. Rafat, Megan, mine's working. Yeah, that's just really weird. It's the same one. I slacked everyone out. Like, oh, here, ta-da! Now it's working. Look at that. It's magic. Yeah. I think they did push out an update today, earlier. Right. But it is periodic because now it's not working. Like, I think I jumped the gun there in excitement. Here we go. Let me just see now if I create the note. I just don't think is it working for anyone else? Is anyone getting the message from handle submit? Yeah, you're getting it? Yeah, mine's just really, really weird.
The only thing I can think of is like it says something about Google APIs in your console, and I've seen it sometimes like when you go over certain usage, you have to add it to your billing account and so on and so forth. So maybe that's.
Oh, like that would suck for today. Considering I spent all day doing it. I still think I should be able to click. You know, it's one of those things. I should be able to click here. I'm going to
remove import database. Try moving import database from Firebase. See if that doesn't make any difference. Maybe.
All right. Yeah. Let's do this. Yeah, it's really slow. I'm gonna shut this thing down because it's really, really slow.
One of the days I was working with Code Sandbox, it was being really slow, and I had to like close my entire browser or something because it was like cached in the browser and nothing was working until I closed it completely.
So not what I wanted to do today. If I have to, but I'm gonna hope I didn't. I've been working in Code Sandbox all day, so all right. Looks good. Looks good. Now it looks like I can. Let me get out of here. I think I might have had it in. All right. Sweet. Click on create. All right. Magic. Just needed to close it, reopen it. Now it works. The Giphy gods are good. Giphy gods are good. All right. So I'm going to go back to my app that I never got around to doing that. Okay. So if we can submit something, that means we should be able to add something to the database, right? We already got all this information, right? We copied and pasted. So I'm just going to go back to my console, go back to the database. Oh, that's really weird. Sometimes this has happened before, where I've added the database, and then all of a sudden my database disappears. Like you saw me add it, so I'm just going to go in and add it again. Should give me the same info. There we go. Yeah, that was weird. Not sure why that happened. All right. Nothing's in there. So let's at least just push one thing into the database, and then we can handle that later on. So I have handle submit here, right? So we know if we type in something here, it's going to come here. And so what is going to come there? So once again, I'm just going to test. I'm console logging the handle submit, the nodes, and I get the word test. Awesome. Now I need to send that data over to the database. Okay. So let's do this. I am going to, only because I'm going to set this to be async. The reason is because we're going to be making like an API call under the hood. We're not using fetch or Axios. I don't know what it's using under the hood to do it, but we're going to be making a call. And when you make that call, I don't know how long it's going to take to do that thing. Okay. And I might opt to go two different ways with this, to push it into my database, where I'm pushing something into the database, manually into our state. We could do that. That's one way to do it. Or we could use that on event listener. So let's give this a shot. Let's say let data is equal to await database, right? Because that's what we imported. Now it's .ref because we are going to be referencing something. So what are we going to be referencing? I'm going to be referencing notes. Notes is going to be the kind of table that I'm going to be referencing. Okay? And then it's like, all right, what do you want to do with this? Well, I want to push something into that. Now, this note is just a string of text, right? That's all it is. So if I take a look at this, I saw that I have title and body. Like these two things kind of define the previous one. So I'm going to say title and then something. So I'm going to go back here. Okay. I'm going to say, we could do this. We could say, I don't know, let message, or maybe let note equal to an object that has title and then note, right? Actually, I'm going to put here message. So there's no conflict between note, right? Okay. So message is equal to this object, and I want to give that object to the database. So I'm going to say push that message into the database. Okay. If this works, right, when we know we're getting something back, we know we're getting a string of text, we're putting that string of text in an object, and we're going to give that object to Firebase. Okay. So I'm going to test this out again. For a shot. And I'm going to move this over here so I could see when I do this. Does it add it? Let's see. Oh, I can't do that. So you know what? I'll just leave this right here. All right, here we go. Create the note. Look, it created the very first kind of notes table. It's really a collection. Has anyone worked with Mongo before? MongoDB? MongoDB, going once, going twice. All right. So Mongo is an object-oriented. It's like a non-SQL, right? You're not using SQL commands. It's kind of object-oriented. Everything is like a collection, and the elements are documents, but they're really objects. That's what it is. And so this is kind of like the title here is notes. That's notes is kind of like the table name. And then this is an object within it an object with key value pairs. Key value pairs that we could extend at any point in time. If we wanted to add additional key value pairs later on, we could. You really wouldn't want to start adding new key value pairs to only certain portions of these things, because there's probably some sort of standardization that your app is going through. Like loop through the thing and make sure it has this key and then grab the value. And if it doesn't have the key, React always flips out. Doesn't really like when things don't have a key within an object. Okay. So it's just as easy as doing that, right? I mean, we didn't see it here. Okay. But I do know that I'm mapping over a map, right? I'm mapping over this thing, which means if I were to update state now, I should see that right here. I should see it appear over here, right? Updating state causes a re-render, loops over notes again. We should be able to do that. So the fact that I have this message key, right? I want to do this. I want to console log and see and say this is data. I want to see what is returned from data. Okay, the fact that I'm doing an await really means that this is a promise. I could have like written it with a then, like we did with fetch, but I don't really like using the thens. So I'm going to do another test, and let's just see what it says is returned back from data. Another test, create, and this is what's returned. It's hard to see that, right? It's returning some sort of reference object. And that reference object has the key to that thing. And I want to always have my thing associated with its key. Like, that's important. So when we do this event listener thing in a little bit, that goes and grabs the things, it's going to get their keys too. It's going to get their information and their keys. And I need their keys, because when I delete something, I'm going to be deleting. If I just browse down here, I'm going to delete based on their key. Just as we have a push method, we also have a remove method, and it removes it based on the key. So we're going to need that. So now I know that this returns an object that has a key that has the value that we're looking for, right? Sweet. So now that I know that, I could do message dot key is equal to data dot key. And then I'm just extending the message object to include a new key, that the value is going to be the key. And then we can do a set, right? What did I have here for the name of it? Set notes, right? Set notes. And set notes is an array, right? So set notes is an array, and let's do message, right? I could just push this into message. So now, if I test again, oh, what happened here? Button is not defined. That's just weird. Button is here. Oh, button's not here. Let me test this one more time. All right. So what I did was here, there's a button that needs to be added in semantic UI. I was moving some things around. So let me do this. Just make sure that second line of code in app looks just like that. It contains the button. I got the error message that the button component wasn't defined. So I clicked on the button, and that triggered the error because it didn't see that this button component. These are components, right? Awesome. So now I see it here, and I should see it here. There's my last thing, but I have a bunch of stuff here. I still don't see all those things. I see the last thing that I added here, and I see test again. I was just typing a bunch of stuff, right? I see it all. Now I can do this. There's a lot of stuff in there. And to be quite honest, like maybe I don't want all that stuff in there. I could delete this whole notes thing right now, get rid of everything and just push something again and it would recreate it. Watch. I can delete the whole thing. It'll all go. I'm not suggesting you do this all the time, but a lot of the times I have 30 entries of just test, 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 right? It gets tedious going all the way down. Now that it's gone, right, I'm going to refresh the page so my state disappears, right? So I don't have that thing in state anymore. Should go back to a blank slate. And now I'm almost reluctant to like refresh anymore. Ta-da. There we go. Create the note. Go back here. Look, it creates the notes table again. So now we have our notes table. It's back. And I pushed it into state. So it's in state, right? So there's different approaches to working with data like this, where you're adding data and then getting the data back, right? Because I did add it, it gave me the thing, and I made the decision to push it into state. So a successful push into the database guarantees that I should push it into state, right? There's this thing when you're working with APIs, your own APIs, where you can create, read, update, and delete, that maybe you just want to target those things individually, right? Because I don't want it to be this whole, if you edit it on your side, I see it. I may not want that. That works great for a message board, but not for other applications, okay? Like when you reload your app, if I was to push things up and somebody else reloaded the app, they would see it, right? This becomes a live kind of refresh. But we're going to set it up so that if there is anything in that database, we see it for the first time. We at least see it for the first time. So just like we pushed our little message into state, we got to see it here, and it's on the database. Somebody delete my thing? Oh, wow. Just disappeared. What we need to do is use effect to run one time, and by that, right? I was answering Gustavo's question, right? Gustavo, when you were doing your app earlier today, you slacked me. Because this was empty, your use effect only runs once. It is a component did mount without this. With this, it's a component did update, but you still need to put something in there to indicate what should trigger the update. So if it doesn't have anything, it won't update at all. We don't want it to update. Okay, without this, like this is a component did update. This is a component did update. Every time state's done, this thing will run again. We don't want that to happen. We want this just to run once, okay? And so we're going to add our subscription here. All right. So in here, I'm going to reference the database again. Database dot ref, right? Because we're referencing. What are we referencing? Notes, right? That's what we're referencing. Now we're going to put an on event listener. And that on event listener is going to listen for a value, okay? It also takes a callback function as well. The callback function, we're going to call it snapshot. That's what we're going to call it. And give it all sorts of names. This is irrelevant what you call it. We could have said notes. Maybe that, but it's a snapshot of the database. Okay. Now that we have this thing running, anytime something is added to the database from anyone, anywhere who's connected to that database, this thing will retrieve those values. So we are going to create a variable, updated notes, and I'm going to create an empty array. This is going to be similar to when we were using Google Sheets, and I had shown you how to use Google Sheets. We saw that there was like this GSX $, the name of something, right? And it was this weird convention that what you really wanted to do was loop over the data that you got from Google Sheets and recreate a new object where you simplified those key value names. Instead of like GSX $title, you pulled that value and you created a new object where you manually wrote title and just stored the value in there. Okay, that's our intent. Our intent is to use this to loop through the things and create new key value pairs based on the data. Okay, so here I'm going to say snapshot. Snapshot. This returned back an array. So how do I know? Let's do this. Let me just console log and say this is snapshot, right? All right. See what comes back. Oh,
We spelled snapshot.
oh. Okay. Snapshot, missed the T. All right.
You're also, the H is also, or the N is also an H right now.
Snap. Eagle eyes. Eagle eyes out there. There we go. All right. So we got this database snapshot. Okay. Now it doesn't look like an array, but it does have a method of for each, which is going to allow us to loop over this thing. Okay. So this is what it has, and it's going to allow us to loop over the data. So I'm going to now do snapshot dot for each, and I'll call it child snapshot. Okay. Now this could have been, you know, D, element, whatever you want to call it. Note, doesn't really matter. Okay. And so what we're going to do here is push into update notes. So we could do something like that. Let's, I don't know, note equal to, and let's create a new note. Let's give it a key where it's the child snapshot dot key. Okay. This is the key associated with that thing. And then we are going to grab its value. And I'm just going to say, hey, grab all the other child values. Because there could be like a dozen key value pairs here. I don't really want to go ahead and create each one of those key value pairs. I'm just going to elicit those key values out of it. Okay? So if there's only, in our case, there's only one thing. But val will elicit all of those things. Okay? Now that we have note, I can say updated notes dot push note. Right? So this will create an object, push that object into updated notes. Okay? And then now that we have updated notes, we can set notes with updated notes. And look, the thing appeared out of nowhere. Right? Just came. How do I know? If I go back here, here is ta-da. Ta-da is there. Okay? So this gives us some persistence, right? Because now if I add another one, I'm going to say, you know, second note, and I add the note. Oh, I don't know where ta-da went. Oh, I think we have issues with this set messages. I'm just going to comment that. Let me say, oh, second note, right there. I have it. I have it here, which really means now I don't need state, right? Like I don't need to do it here because I am pushing everything into state. When I do handle submit, if I add something here, it should push it into state, right? That's why we're seeing it. The reason why we're going to see anything on the screen is because notes, the array of notes, has a new thing, right? So, I don't know, third node. Look, the third node is added. Anytime we push something to the database, we're going to get this. And when we handle submit, we are pushing something to the database. Pushing something to the database triggers a re-render, triggers that on event listener. So this on event listener, okay, dot on is triggered by any database updates. Anything that changes, a value that changes, this thing runs. Doesn't really matter. It's always going to run. It's going to keep running. Okay? In the end, maybe, I don't know, it's not the most convenient thing to do to like keep pulling all of the things. A better approach, in all honesty, would be to target individual things and then delete them. Okay? But if I'm just working, that only works if I'm working on my own notes app. No one else sees it, it's just my app. If I add, edit, and delete those things, sure, they're going to get deleted from my app, right? And then I can update state and just say, hey, I deleted it from Firebase. Now I'm going to remove it from state, just like we've been doing up to this very moment, right? We've known how to do it. Filter, slice, however it is you want to get rid of that thing. Spread operators, okay? Does make sense? Not too bad, right? Okay. Let's try the delete. Okay? Because delete doesn't really do anything. Blah, blah, blah. You click on delete all day. And all I'm going to get is delete a note by ID. Delete a note by ID. And the reason for that is because we need to target that thing, that document in the database based on its ID. So let's delete it based on its ID. Okay. How are we going to do that? Well, once again, we're not updating state at this point in time. That's not the approach. But if I was, I would turn this into an async function. I would. And then I would do something like let note is equal to await. Actually, you don't even need to do this. We could just say await database.ref. What are we accessing? Now, I'm going to do backticks. I'm going to do string interpolators. And this is the reason why. The path is in notes, right? / but what's the thing that we are accessing? The thing that we are targeting is going to be the ID of that thing, or the key, whatever it is. Okay? Now I'm targeting that. That alone doesn't remove it. I have to add the remove method. Adding the remove method should remove it from the database. Now removing it from the database triggers a re-render that updates state with all of those elements, and we should see it gone. Right? We should see this thing go. Delete, it's gone. Delete, it's gone. Not sure where my errors are coming from here. Child snapshot is not defined. I'm going to go to the database. Look, I'm running out of stuff. K1, boom, delete. Ta-da, delete. And they are deleting themselves from the database. So it's pretty cool. Pretty cool tool.
Hey, Joe, in this case, would key and ID just be interchangeable?
Yeah, I probably should have named it. I would probably now name this key, since that's really what we've been naming it before. Like we pushed in key, really is it. Key and ID, I don't know, they could be interchangeable, but I would use a semantic naming convention across everything. But as I was building this out and playing around, I was changing things from ID to key, and like, I don't want to confuse anyone. But now I would have to change this to be key. But ID, it doesn't matter. It's just looking for a value, however you pass that value in. Cool? Awesome. Any questions? Anybody looking to use Firebase in their app? I know some of you were like, I'm going to use Google Sheets, and I thought Google Sheets really easy. You know how to do that. If you are looking to add entries and edit those entries and keep them persistent, once again, if I refresh this, that data is persistent. It lives in the cloud. If it lived in my state, it would be gone. Okay.
Well, it lives in both, right? Because you
Well,
add
yeah,
it to state from the cloud.
I did, but if I refresh the page, I would lose state originally, but I would get it back after Firebase pushes it back in. Without Firebase, I don't have any persistence, right?
Yeah, but without state, you don't have the re-render.
True. They both follow suit. But we're looking for persistence. Like when we did Google Sheets, we didn't really have any way of adding things to the Google Sheet besides manually going into the sheet, right? If I took some projects or I took some colors and I added colors on the fly and I refreshed the page, I would lose those colors that I added dynamically, but I would retain the ones that I pulled from Google, from the Google Sheet. That was the persistence. This allows you to now delete things also. And so we don't necessarily have to monitor state as much. Okay? Awesome. Cool. 9:01. Why don't we take our 10-minute? We'll come in and we'll jump in the lab. 9:01, 9:11. Come back. Actually, come back at 9:10. Let's come back at 9:10. Break time. Come back at 9:10. All right. Yeah. Abdul, your co-host. Sorry about that. All right. Going back. Okay. So here is the lab. All right. So you're going to try to implement as close to what we had done with the message board, right? So you already have a working example of the message board. Okay. There's a form. The form is already set up to pass the data. It's passing the data back up to app. Like you have to set up everything as though we had set it up originally. You have to create a React. You have to create a new application via Firebase. Add the database. Import your configs into here. Okay. And yeah. And then you have a delete button. There's also like a thumbs up and a thumbs down. That's to update it. There is an update method also, and we could send that information to target it. And then this value here would do that. Let's just see how far everyone can get with just setting everything up. Now, I do have, let's see. Read me with just some notes on setting things up that might kind of walk you through the process. Don't follow everything else down here past this because it does a different kind of configuration. Some of it is good, but then they start to deviate using a componented mount and using a set method, which is not what we want to do. I don't want to walk anyone down that road, but it does have some kind of slides that would walk you through it. So I'll slack you that. Yeah, if you have any questions, you know what? Why don't we do this? Why don't we walk through the creation of the database of the app together, so everyone's on the same page? Okay, we'll just do that, and then I'll let you go and do your own thing. So I'm going to go to Firebase again. Right? I'm on Firebase. I'm going to add a project. What do you want to call your project? I will call this project, I don't know. Project name is required, but it's not allowing me. All right. Message board. That's my project name. Message board. Okay. Once we define the name of our app, I just continue. I don't do this. You can do it if you want to. It's just going to ask you for your Google Analytics account. I'm going to create the project. Just takes a moment to create it. Okay. Easy enough, right? Creates the project. Everyone good?
Didn't we use the same project from the...
I mean, you could use it. You could. If you wanted to add more information, I mean, that one, I would split them up and just give you more practice creating new apps, right? Where here, I go to the database and I just choose real-time database. This is like their newer one. Not try to work with that one just yet. I go test mode. Now I enable it. That should take me right here. There's nothing in here. My security rules, I know. I'm going to dismiss that message. All right. Then I'm going to go to project overview, and I'm going to click on web. Clicking on web will then say, hey, what do you want your name to be? Message, I don't know, what did I call it? Message app, message board? I don't know. I'm going to call it message board. I forgot what I called it. And then I'm just going to register the app, and that's when I'll get the config information. And there you go. You got your config information. And now you can take that config information and put it into the Firebase file. You do have, I did already import Firebase, so it is already imported. You just have to do the rest of the setup, and you can compare it to what we did. Okay? We good?
Yep.
What was the last step that you just did?
On the Firebase here?
Yeah, on the Firebase.
I went to, let me do this again. I went to project overview. And then, oh, now that I did it, where do I get my configs? I think maybe settings, project settings. Now that I did it, I have to go look at the project settings.
It's in general if you scroll down.
Oh, it's right here. Sweet. Yeah, we created the app. And then when we added the app, it gave us this screen right here. Okay. And so if you do close, you need to get back to it. Just go to settings, go to general, go down to the bottom, and it'll be right there. Okay. Now that you have that info, just paste that in, do what we did in ours, and you should be good to go. Okay. All right. I'll create the breakout rooms. Again, I'll put those who want to work together. And breakout rooms. You just move a few people around here. 6. And move on to room 5. 7 to 9. Boom. Okay. Open up the rest of the rooms. Here we go. Open all rooms. Bloop. Let's take a look at the app, because this is where the magic's happening, right? Form really didn't need to be touched. So in here, we have our database, right? So at the very top, database from / database. That means we're going into this file itself. Without this, we remove this, then we're trying to import database from the Firebase library, all right? That's going to error out. Cool. So we have use effect. We have database.ref, messages.onValue, right? Snapshot. We're getting all the data. There's our default array to store the objects. Once we loop over them, snapshot.forEach, right? We're going to loop, calling it FB message. We're creating a new object where we're grabbing all the previous values and then just grabbing its key, because I don't know what other previous values it might have had. So let's just grab them all. Since I'm not really changing them and I'm only adding a key, that's really all I'm doing. Then I'm pushing them one at a time into messages, and then we set the database. We set state, set messages, and it does it, right? Handle submit is just creating a new message. Here, Abner is passing in the value, right? So it's message as a key, message, and then whatever message is passed in as a value. It's creating a score property here, okay? And then push that piece of information into the database. By pushing it, whoop, we do an on event, and we get that data back, and it loops through, and it does the whole thing again. Handle delete, easy enough, right? Database.ref, messages, the path to the message, the ID of the message, the remove method. And then render messages. Okay, so you added a handle vote, handle delete. Handle vote right here. And so you're passing it, I guess, the message key, right? So the object itself, you're passing the whole object because you're passing in and grabbing the key and whatever the change was. And there's an update method, and the update method allows you to update the thing. And so you can just give it the exact key that you need to update. You don't have to do like the spread operator for an object like you were doing up here, right? Or like we would do in state sometimes for like form and nested data. We don't have to do that. It kind of knows. It's like state. When we did this dot set state, it always knew what value we were doing. We didn't have to like pull in all the previous values. Okay, so you're just giving it a score. It's the change. And then down here, right, you added a handle vote. You're passing it the object because that's what's being passed here. And it's 1 to go up, -1 to go down. Handle delete, key.key, right? Because we're passing up just the key. And then the score, because we have a new thing in the database called score. And so these will all work, up, down, and delete, right? This one doesn't have it because that was the default one that I put on the screen originally. Cool. How's everyone feeling about that? I'm going to make it just so your eyes like, I don't know how I'm feeling. I don't. I'm feeling confused. Right? I think Joey said she was feeling confused too. I'm going to put that solution here. Did anyone have anything a little bit different? I can put another solution as well. I see 3 people did finish it. Anybody else want to shoot me theirs? And I'll add it here as a solution. No? Nobody? Nobody's daring? It's okay. All right. All right. Go over the homework. Homework is just an article to read 4 ways to style React components. We're going to be doing styling. And then just continue to work on your project. Really, next week was kind of like the initial build, get something like the pre-build. Take your React architecture and build that out to something, because we only have next week, right? So next Tuesday, style components. Thursday, I'm going to let you to work on your project. The following Tuesday is Redux, and then we present our projects. Okay? So really, like style components, some of you already know how to style. Style components is just another library. And Redux, once again, is one of those advanced tools. You can see it. If you're not using use reducer now and use context, I don't think you're going to be jumping right into Redux, but it'd be good to be exposed to it, right? Because you could use context and use reducer to do the similar things that Redux does, but Redux definitely has more features and functionality. Awesome. Any questions? Last minute questions? I know it's 10:02, so I don't want to hold anyone. But okay, yeah. Just slide out the link for the exit tickets, and I think we'll be done for the night. Love to hear what you have to say about Firebase. Okay. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Night.